Good morning. I'm Bonnie Gardner. I'm co-chair of the Public Affairs Forum of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Austin. Welcome. Our public affairs forums are free and open to the public and are scheduled for most Sundays at noon in our sanctuary. We encourage you to attend. Our mission is to nurture the mind and the spirit and serve social justice. You can get more information about our church forums by going to our church website at www.austinuu.org. And now Peggy Morton with the Social Justice Committee is going to introduce today's two wonderful speakers. Peggy?
Thank you, Bonnie. Well, it's not every Sunday that we bring guest speakers from out of state. But when we learned about the good work being done at the New Sanctuary Movement of Philadelphia, we wanted to hear from this dynamic duo, Blanca Pacheco and Nicole Kligerman. Throughout April, our Social Action Committee is launching several Spring into Action events focused on Immigrant Sanctuary to help our congregation and the broader Austin community learn about this sacred work. Blanca immigrated from Ecuador 15 years ago, and within 5 years, she started teaching Know Your Rights lessons to fellow immigrants. Then she joined the board of the New Sanctuary Movement of Philadelphia and eventually started her current work there as an organizer, where she directs a leadership school to help immigrants rise above the victimization of their situation to feel empowered to speak up. Nicole started her career as a union organizer. She worked on the Ice Out of Philadelphia program with the New Sanctuary Movement, and she also helps with its refugee resettlement program and accompaniment program, and she helped Angela win her case after 58 days of living in sanctuary at a church, in a Presbyterian church. So, as you'll soon see, both Blanca and Nicole balance each other beautifully in their work to make the world a better place. So now, I want to welcome Blanca and Nicole to the mic.
Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here and for organizing this amazing forum. We are really glad to be here today. As Peggy said, my name is Blanca Pacheco. I'm originally from South America, and I've been living 15 years here. And today we're going to be talking about New Sanctuary Movement of Philadelphia and what is our structure, what have we done, programs that we have, and lessons that we have learned in this process while we have been building the organization. And also we have some amazing pictures to share of our members. So we are, our organization has 4 staff, 3 community organizers, our ED, and we also have our board that meets bi-monthly. We are formed by different congregations, different faiths. At this point, we are working with 19 congregations. And our congregations are divided by, we have allies who are citizens who support in solidarity, and immigrants who get together and plan a strategy at what campaigns we're working on, and campaigns that affect their lives. So immigrants plan a strategy, decide what we work on, and ally support in solidarity. The other thing that we do, with the values we operate are values of dignity, nonviolence, and mutuality. My favorite one is mutuality because we believe that everyone has something to give and something to gain, and everyone has something to learn and something to teach. So that's my favorite value. We are also work in different programs, and one of them is we started in 2007. I don't know if you guys heard around the first sanctuary case that happened in Chicago. Elvira Arellano was a Mexican mom who decided to take sanctuary in a church in Chicago. That was the first case. And like many concerned people gathered together to think about how are we going to help Elvira, how are we going to help other cases. At the end, Elvira got deported. She went back to Mexico and decided to leave her child here with her family members. Now she's back after years. That happened in 2006, and she has kept organizing immigrant community. The conversation between various leaders around the country was like, how do we bring sanctuary movement, the old sanctuary movement from the 80s back in a different model that applies to the situation that is happening right now. So in Philadelphia, we started gatherings with a group of faith people, and we started talking about what can we do to our community, what is happening to them, which was around 2008, immigration and the police started working together in Philadelphia. And they just immigration started showing up to people's houses and like dragging people from out of their houses at 5 in the morning. Or people was going to work and got stopped in the street and they were being turned over to immigration and then deported. So we realized that there was a lot of fear in the immigrant community that they will not even come to workshops when they heard the word immigration. But we realized that the place they trusted was the church. And we decided to do Know Your Rights after services. Right after service, we will teach them what to do in case the police detains you, what to do in case immigration comes to your house. And we stayed like that for a while, and that was something that the community really, really appreciated. And it was good to start, teaching them or telling them that there was a community behind them to support them. That was for the immigrant community. Something that we did with our ally community was teaching Immigration 101. Which was, explaining citizens why immigrants or why we don't wait on a line, which is a lot there are so many people that come legally, why don't you do the same thing? Like in my case, I will never be able to get a visa because I lived in fields, I didn't have money on the bank, I didn't have those requirements to be able to apply for a visa. So the easy decision is to cross the border. That's something that we did to teach our allies, what it means to be an immigrant, why we don't wait on the line, why, all these myths that is talk in the media that immigrants only get benefits from welfare, that only are a charge for the country, immigrants don't pay taxes, which is not true. There is an IT number that is given to people, which is a taxpayer identification number that people pay taxes with, but you cannot do anything else with it. And we also have done leadership school, which has been a model to bring immigrants together. First, we started doing storytelling, and we realized that people were very isolated. People thought, oh, I'm alone in this struggle, I'm undocumented, I don't have nobody else to be an ally with. And storytelling really helped people think in a different way and just see, oh, it's not only my story, but it's a collective issue that is happening with other people from my same country or different countries. So storytelling was something that really sparked a curiosity and a way to empower immigrants to be able to come out. And then we started also working in campaigns. And one thing that was taught in the leadership school was how do you work in a campaign? How do you escalate? And how do you do tactics? How you as an immigrant can have an impact, and also how our allies can support us in solidarity, coming to lobby visits, coming to rallies, coming to meetings with politicians, and things like that. So we was learning about that, learning about the power and what power means. And that has been happening for the last 4 years, and I was one of the first students of the leadership school. We also have worked in accompaniment, which Nicole can explain a little bit more about it, so I'll pass to her.
So as Blanca said, we have 19 member congregations, half of which are immigrant and the other half are allies, which is what we call congregations that are primarily citizens. Of those immigrant congregations, some are Latino and some are Indonesian. We're also moving on working with some mosques that we're really excited about. And also, as Blanca said, mutuality and solidarity. Our model is to be immigrant-led and have allies, citizens work in mutuality and solidarity with them. So one of the primary ways that we do that is through our long-term accompaniment program. which you can see a photo of here. So our accompaniment program, which I coordinate, takes our immigrant members from our member congregations who are in deportation proceedings and pairs their family with one of our allied congregations in a long-term, 1 to 3 year plus relationship that it takes to defeat the deportation. So they go to court together, they build mutual relationships to support each other emotionally, spiritually, socially during the course of the deportation, do anything to help the case, like write letters on people's behalf, petitions, actions. We don't give money. That's another important value of ours, that if you're going to build a mutual relationship, you can't be paying the rent. I think we learned that the hard way and how that can create a difficult dynamic. We have, in some cases, helped people find work. So in this case, this is Pedro, who you can see in the back in the blue and white striped shirt. He goes to our he's from Mexico. He goes to our member congregation Visitation, which is a Catholic church, also our landlord, in North Philadelphia. He was targeted. He was driving and targeted by the police, who racially profiled him, who picked him up, put what's called an ICE hold, which is a 48-hour detention hold on someone, and he was transferred to immigration and put into deportation proceedings. So he was accompanied by one of our member synagogues called Mishkan Shalom, who were with him for over 2 years. His lawyer actually also goes to the synagogue, which is a nice kind of combination. So the members at Mishkan accompanied Pedro and his family for over 2 years to fight his deportation, not just going to court with him, but also spending time with him, going to his house, participating, going to each other's religious services, or that kind of interfaith component. And very happy to report that he won his case through prosecutorial discretion and is now on his way to his green card. His wife is also undocumented, so he can sponsor her. So that was a really big victory for us. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't think that he had that strong of a case on his own. So I really believe in the power of accompaniment and of communities showing up for people to actually alter an immigration case. So this long-term accompaniment is multiple years. We've had 13 cases, all of which we've won. We currently have a couple more right now. One is a father who's also from Mexico in deportation proceedings, who's paired with, who's Catholic, and he's paired with one of our allied Catholic parishes. And another is a family of 7 young people, minors, who have come in 3 different waves from Honduras in the past 2 years, fleeing the violence that you all know about. Honduras is one of the most unsafe countries in the world and has one of the highest homicide rates. So they've come, 7 young people who have come to Philadelphia in the past 2 years. They've been paired with both a Baptist church and now a Mennonite church of allies. We've won 4 of their cases and are in the process for 3 others. So you can keep all of those families in your thoughts and prayers. So that's our long-term accompaniment program. To pair our allied congregations with the families, we go through a really intentional mutual building process. So everyone is opting into this relationship. No one has to do it. We also do short-term accompaniment where people come to our office and say, I'm going to court and I'm really afraid. So we have a list of allies who goes to court with people. We sit with them for, if you've been to court, it is an enormous bureaucracy. It can take hours. So we sit with people who, we were in court with 10 allies just last week, and the family we were with is a mom and 2 kids who came from Honduras 3 months ago. The mom said she hadn't eaten in 2 days because she was so nervous about her court. So being there for people is really critical. So we'll go to court with people 1 or 2 times, pair them with lawyers that we work with, and then, and support them in that way. And we also do a lot of casework of people saying, I need support around domestic violence or child abuse issues or healthcare issues, or I'm in deportation, or my husband just got picked up and I need the name of a lawyer. So that's another key way that allies are working in solidarity with our members facing deportation.
Yeah. So if I could just add to that, that just reminded me of a story of Alejandra and Francisco. Francisco was beat up by the police, and of course he was accused of him attacking the police, and it was a long fight because he was going to put in deportation after spending his entire life in jail. So through accompaniment, we were able to win that case, and I think allies still remember like how hard they fought together with Alejandra and Francisco. And also Alejandra has been like one of our, actually she's the one speaking in the picture. She has been really involved and one of our biggest leaders. And I remember her like through leadership school, like her growth, and through accompaniment and then leadership school, her growth. She will come to our meetings and we'll just sit in the corner and wouldn't say a word. But then little by little he grew, and now she's speaking in front of like this big crowd. And one time I asked her, like, what has she learned? How does she think she had grew? And she said, if I look back, I wouldn't even recognize myself. Because, seeing the support of the allies working together, it really felt me part of the community. So that was really, really big in a memory that came back to me.
Another thing about Alejandra is that she spoke alongside the Pope when he came to Philadelphia in September. We have a really close relationship with the Archdiocese, and she was asked to represent undocumented Latinos and sharing her story in front of 40,000 people in person and millions of people who were watching it. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and talking about the campaigns, she is we are working in a driver's license campaign right now, which is asking the Pennsylvania legislators to approve a bill that will grant driver's license to all undocumented immigrants. At this point, we don't have a driver's license, and we have a bill on the House that it's not moving right now. The majority of our politicians, unfortunately, are Republicans who don't want to move the bill. But we are still doing a lot of work on that. And the way we decide what campaigns we work on is through listening campaigns. So in the summer of 2014, we listened over 200 families from like different immigrant backgrounds, Indonesians, from Palestinians, Latinos, and all of the communities that are considered immigrants. And one of the issues that came out is like people said, if we're able to get a driver's license, that will really change our lives significantly. Because some people have their business and they need to move quickly, move faster. And actually, Alejandra's sister, she has a job at her home, so she sells jackets at her basement. And she needs to move quickly to different places. She needs to drop kids at the school. She needs to like run and get the materials. She needs to like use the car at least more than 5 times a day. So it's not, she was saying it's not a luxury, but it is a need. If I won't be able to survive if I don't have a driver's license, because I need to move quickly in order to fulfill my, daily tasks and also my job. So driver's license is one of the campaigns we're working on right now. Allies are supporting in solidarity when we go to do lobby visits, when we go to do rallies and all that stuff. And also we have been involved in immigration reform with different organizations that we are working together in Philadelphia. The ISOL campaign, which Nicole mentioned, that Francisco was put on hold for 48 hours, was the campaign that we were able to win in 2014. So right now there is not collaboration between immigration and police in Philadelphia, which was a big, like hidden tool that immigration was using to deport people, and we were able to take that off. And that people have been really, really excited. I heard stories of someone telling me, "Oh, now that the police and immigration are not working together, I now bought a car, so now I can move quickly to the church, move quickly to do my tasks." But now we don't have a driver's license, so that's another issue. We're still working on it. And then also just to go a little bit, I'm going to step back a little bit of like our structure. I wanted to show a drawing of how we are structured. and how everything connects. I don't know if it's visible. Oh, it's not visible.
We'll just go back to the
yeah.
picture then.
Yeah, and I don't know if you want to add anything. Like the Sanctuary campaign, which we did a little bit more than a year ago with Angela. Nicole worked really strongly on that campaign. Angela is a woman from Honduras who has been living undocumented for over 12 years here in the U.S. with an order of deportation. And we were able to organize with her to win the Sanctuary campaign. I think you would like to talk more?
Sure. Before we talk about, I just want to add one thing to our ICE Holds victory. Philadelphia has the best local anti-deportation policy in the country. It's not only the police that doesn't work with ICE, it's also our local jails. And then a big piece of our campaign was saying that we, as people of faith, we don't believe in double punishment. We believe in redemption for everyone, and we believe in second chances. So if someone in Philadelphia, if someone is incarcerated, in Philly, if you have a sentence of 2 years or less, you're in the Philadelphia County jails. If it's more than that, you would go to a state or federal jail. So instead of being incarcerated, serving one sentence, ostensibly, paying for that crime, instead of being deported out of a Philadelphia jail, people are now allowed to go home. So a really big piece of our campaign was fighting for people with convictions, not saying these are good people and bad people, not allowing for that kind of divide and conquer strategy, but rather saying that if someone is going to be incarcerated, they've already paid their dues to society, and they shouldn't suffer the double punishment of deportation after incarceration exclusively because of their country of origin and immigration status. So that's something that we're really proud of, not just that we have the best policy in the country and that it protects people who are formerly incarcerated, but also in terms of pushing that messaging that this is not, we're workers, not criminals, for instance, is a common messaging, and really pushing back against that, that we believe in redemption for everybody, we believe in second chances for everybody, and we don't believe in deportation of anybody. And that was certainly a process, like a kind of political process to get to that instance, but it's something that's now really important to us. So then to talk a little bit about our Sanctuary campaign. So we are called New Sanctuary Movement of Philadelphia, but we do a lot, as you've heard, between our education, our political education, our accompaniment, our casework, our campaigns, which are all of these things which are immigrant-led. We really understand physical sanctuary, like Sulma lived here, as a tactic in the broader immigrant rights movement and not as like our purpose in of itself, but rather something to be strategically deployed when it's most appropriate. And we decided to do sanctuary when it became clear that immigration reform was unfortunately dead, when President Obama continued to deport 1,100 people a day, although for years he was saying, like, I'm coming out with something big, like, when is that going to happen? And sanctuary as a nationwide, giving physical sanctuary, which obviously you're all part of, as a nationwide movement to push immigrant justice forward. So in our case, Angela, who's in the middle here, is a Honduran mother who came to the U.S. when she was 7 months pregnant. She crossed here in Texas while pregnant with Arturo, who's in the photo. And she was apprehended at the border when she was 17 and had family in Philadelphia, so was sent to play out her trial in Philly. She presented at court 3 times, and the last time she was given immigration is full of euphemisms. So a voluntary departure order, which is you can pay for a one-way ticket back to Honduras. She decided, obviously, given she had her baby and her whole family was here, to stay in Philadelphia, at which point the voluntary departure converted into a final deportation order. So we realized, we decided that we wanted to do this physical sanctuary as a tactic, and asked Angela if she wanted to take sanctuary. Her family has been involved in our organization for years. Her mom was on our board. Her 2 sisters and both of her parents went through leadership school. We had worked with all of them very closely. So this wasn't a random person. This is someone who's already in an activist family who was really engaged, although she had not been as much. So she lived in West Kensington Ministry, which is a primarily Puerto Rican church in her neighborhood who's a member congregation, it's Presbyterian. It's a member congregation of New Sanctuary Movement. The pastor is also Honduran. And she lived there for 58 days before we won her case. A little bit about the campaign. We understand Sanctuary to be is immigrant-led. It's Angela and her family that are taking the risks, and we're here to support in solidarity. We don't at all understand this to be protecting her, to be saving her, or even like helping in a kind of that model, but really that she is entering into a civil disobedience, and it's our obligation to support her in that way. So to that end, she was really an organizer on her campaign. I worked with her every single day, like maybe not one Saturday, for 58 days while she was in Sanctuary. We had a small team that was her husband, her parents, myself, the pastor, and then 3 allies from representing different member congregations. And we met at least once a week for organizing meetings. There was a really strong accountability structure in that. I brought ideas based on my organizing experience. I was frequently shot down in those ideas. So that was important that Angela and her family were being like, that's not going to work. We don't like it. Stupid. Move on. Sometimes they did like my ideas. But it was really a space where not our organization protecting, but rather Angela at the forefront deciding how she wanted to run her campaign. So to that end, and I'm sure you have used many of these tactics, but just to share in case it's helpful in the campaigns that you're working on. So we decided we started with we want to get petition signatures. So in the first week, I think we put a goal of 2,000 signatures in the first week. So knowing that immigrants, a lot of people don't have email addresses, don't really use computers, we printed out sheets. We had tons of people going through the neighborhood, going to their church, signing the petition for her, bringing back those physical petitions, and then a team of volunteers who were entering them into computers. So in the first week and a half, we got 6,000 signatures that way. We then said we want to get letters from 100 clergy talking about why they support Angela and Sanctuary and why we want an end to her deportation. We ended up getting 200 letters. And that was all from organizing because we had, Angela's priest was in this organizing team as well. So we all went out, that's kind of the power of the interfaith, using Baptist, Jewish, Catholic, Presbyterian, Mennonite, using those networks. We then, Angela, her husband, and I went to D.C. and had a lobby visit with one of our U.S. congressmen who wrote a letter in support of her that we then sent to our ICE director in Pennsylvania. We got 11 city council people to sign a letter supporting her as well. Throughout this whole time that we were building pressure, and then, obviously a lot of press releases. There was a ton of interviews, as I know you all have done as well. It was also something that was really important is supporting Angela in the ways that she needed to be supported. So she's a very, very devout Catholic. So we brought her church to her. Her women's prayer circle came and prayed with her multiple times a week. The nun that runs her parish came to her. It was the Mexican Posadas. So her priest changed the route of carrying the Virgin of Guadalupe and walked to her church, which they walked to the Basilica in the center of Philadelphia. So they changed the route to pass by her and serenaded her with mariachis. We had interfaith prayer services that were all in Spanish. So I think part of that spiritual support was also really important, and having her really busy and engaged during those 58 days was really critical. And then we were planning a big march to the ICE building on a certain Saturday, and then we had my favorite thing that I've ever canceled because she won 3 days before the march was to go off. Something else that was really important is her lawyer was really community-minded and really understood the role of the lawyer to do the legal stuff rather than as the organizing stuff. So we communicated all the time. She also shot me down when she didn't like some of my ideas. But really being very clear about what the role of the congregation, the role of the family, the role of the organization, and the role of the lawyer was, I think is really important in our work in general when there's not clarity over what those roles are and how all of those roles are equally important but just perform different functions. I think that can come up with a conflict. Angela is still, she's now a leader at her parish as a result of the sanctuary campaign. 4 immigrant Catholic congregations were members, including hers. So now she helps me organize in her parish for driver's licenses. She's coming with us to Washington when the Supreme Court on the 18th is hearing the deferred action case, which is that thing that we were supposedly waiting for under Obama. So, pray on that too. So Angela's leadership continues, and she's really been able to continue to support the growth of the organization. To preempt any potential questions, we are not planning on we have no plans to do another physical sanctuary campaign. We might if that came up as strategic and necessary, but again, we understand physical sanctuary to be one very, very powerful tactic that's part of a broader whole. So I think did you have anything to add? So I think that is our planned speaking portion. While we are taking questions, I have a slideshow of some of our members, so we wanted to bring them here with us. So these are pictures of our members at actions, the social gatherings we have, meetings, our General Assembly. So just so you can see a little bit of the face of our organization. Okay, good, it's working. So if there's any questions.
Do you all have any questions? We have a question from Felicia Congable.
I recently visited Philadelphia and was struck by how many Quaker schools there are there. And I thought maybe the sanctuary city thing in part came from this Quaker base in Philadelphia. And I'm wondering if, I didn't hear you mention any Quaker meeting houses. Are they not set up to, well, I heard you mention Mennonite, but I didn't hear the name Quaker.
We don't have any Quaker member congregations. Right now, I think that the organized Quaker base in Philadelphia is really focused on kind of international peace issues and have been less involved in local organizing efforts.
We have a question from Eric Hartman. Eric?
Yes, thank you. I'm interested in how members of the participant churches or congregations affiliate. Is there a formal action that they take that you require them to take to show commitment?
Yes. So we the process is like we very intentionally recruited congregations to keep the balance of immigrants and allies. So when someone decided to join the organization, it has been a process where the pastor gives the okay, and then that means that they will give a donation when they're not able to give a donation, so it's okay, but we, if they can, the majority of them do, and they open the doors for us to organize their community inside. So usually we have a plan, a year plan, saying in the first 6 months we will do X, Y, and Z, and also like you agree to, leave the message of the New Sanctuary Movement, our values, and also whatever is needed, preach about it, involve your members, and it's like opening the doors to work openly about immigrant issues.
Yeah, and we have like a form that people sign.
We have a question from Roseanne Reeser. Would you stand, please?
Thank you for coming. It's very, very inspiring what you're doing in Philadelphia. Here in Texas, the word sanctuary seems to be is a real hot button for more right-wing interests, I would say, and wondered if you have experienced any pushback in your state legislature, which we certainly are, and I wonder if you have, and how you're dealing with that.
We do. There is an anti-sanctuary cities bill in Pennsylvania right now, along with a lot of other asinine anti-immigrant bills that make no sense, like saying that undocumented people can't get public benefits. They already can't. And also, we don't have a budget in Pennsylvania, so they're spending a lot of our time and taxpayer dollars talking about things that are already federal law. So we're here tomorrow, but we have members and the rest of our staff is going to our Capitol tomorrow to do an action in front of the office of the woman who's the prime sponsor of the Anti-Sanctuary Cities bill. We've done a fair amount of press around it, and are pushing back in that action tomorrow. I think that we are different and lucky in Texas. That I think we're very Republican-controlled in our legislature, but our governor is a Democrat who would veto it. So in that way, we're in a different situation. But it's still very scary that is being put forth and does have support from a lot of Republicans and maybe some Democrats as well.
We have a question here. Would you say your name, please?
My name is Janelle, a former member of this church, now in Silver City, New Mexico. I understand about not paying the rent for people and that kind of involvement, but your organization must have a lot of expenses, and I'm wondering how you handle that with your status as a nonprofit and fundraising.
So I know about this because I used to have to help us pay the bills. We have 4.5 staff. We're all paid the same, which, fun fact, as part of our value system, our executive director makes the same amount of money as us, which is not that much money, but I like that system. We are 65% funded by individuals, both in small donations. We have over 100 people who are what we call our sustainers, that they give recurring monthly donations, as well as like major donors. And then the rest is from foundations, mostly local family foundations. We don't get any we don't get any government money, obviously, because we work with undocumented people.
We have a question from Chloe Sykes, and if you can face the camera, that would help. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for being here. My question is, how do the member churches, or what are their organizing structures within them? So you mentioned like Angela helps organize the parish that she's in. How does she do that? What are the structures? Is there a unified core group, or is it across committees in those churches, or how does it vary?
So for several years, we had like a central committee that was the Immigrant committee from like all the immigrant congregations that came together bi-weekly to plan a strategy, and then we will have bi-monthly meetings where all 19 congregations will come together to follow the tactics that the committee has planned. Now we are growing, and we are now still keeping the structure of the bi-monthly meetings where all our members come. But we will have 2 retreats per year where a bigger group of immigrants will plan strategy and tactics. And then when we come together bi-monthly, then all of these people who represented their churches will go back to their congregation and will organize their members to implement the tactics that we decided together.
And we have what we call key leaders from each congregation, so that's our point people. So, for instance, one of my churches is a Catholic parish called St. Vincent's. They have 2 key leaders, Paul and Jean. And so when I'm like, we need to do this at St. Vincent's, they'll send out the call. They also have a monthly New Sanctuary Movement Committee meeting, which we try to have in all of our congregations. And then they engage more people to come to the General Assembly. As we grow, we're having to kind of amend what that model looks like. The goal is to have New Sanctuary committees in all 19 of our congregations that have the couple of point people that help us organize. We divide our 19 congregations by our 3 staff. And fun fact, our last meeting General Assembly meeting was our first trilingual meeting, so it was facilitated in, we always have simultaneous interpreters with headsets. It was facilitated in Indonesian by one of our key leaders from one of our Indonesian churches, Indonesian, Spanish, and English. Something else I think that's important about us is that we don't have open, for strategy meetings, we don't have open meetings. It's people who belong to our member congregations and want to engage long-term in our work. We used to have more open meetings, and it kind of cut down on the accountability and the regularity of who was in the room, and we also see these General Assembly spaces as really important for relationship building, which is difficult when different people are showing up all the time.
Yeah, and for the people who are not members and still want to do some work, they can help us in come to our rallies or lobby visits, or some churches don't have the time to organize, but they will also sometimes contribute monetarily.
And in that way, also in terms of not having the time to organize, it's really important to us to not. There's, I think, different models of organizing faith communities. One is to have as many people sign on as possible because that makes you look strong, and another is to have membership who are really doing things in the congregation, and we're the latter type. So we're not just looking for sign-ons because immigrant justice is important, or to check off that immigrant box in their litany of issues that's important, but we really want congregations to deeply engage with our work. But that's just our model, and there's many.
We have a question from Douglas Bauer. Douglas?
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. You mentioned during the talk that you were having difficulty getting driver's licenses through the Pennsylvania legislature. I observed in Texas that the immigrant community really has a lot more power than they're exercising right now, because a lot of them don't vote, even the ones that are perfectly allowed to. Have you ever looked into trying to get more of the immigrant community in Philadelphia and other places to get out to the voting booth?
Well, we primarily work with undocumented people, so they unfortunately can't vote. And our citizen members, I think, are really active in the voter registration stuff. So we haven't really done concerted voter registration drives. We are, for the first time actually, doing that on Thursday. The Fight for 15, the work to get a $15 minimum wage, has a national strike day on Thursday, and we're sponsoring it. One of our immigrant members is speaking at the big rally, and we're also doing voter registration on Thursday morning on that strike day. That is going to be some of our immigrant members and striking McDonald's workers, registering people to vote, and talking about that intersection between worker justice and immigrant justice. So that's actually, I think, our first foray in 3.5 years that I've been working here into the voter registration.
And also, if I remember correctly, as a 501c3, we have to be careful of how do we do that type of political work.
Yeah, we can't endorse any candidates. I have my opinions, but.
We have a question from a longtime Unitarian, Chris Kellogg.
I was wondering, I remember ancient history when the Central Americans were coming up in the 80s. And, of course, Ronald Reagan gave amnesty to, 2 or 3 million people. That often relatives would be caught at the border, Texas border, and an immigration lawyer would fix things up for just $5,000, $10,000 a person. And for the Salvadorian families that I've worked with, they'd get all their money together to get that person out of immigration detention down in San Antonio, I think it was. How pliable is the legal system on this? Are there families that have the wherewithal that can essentially do what you all have done just because they have money instead of the support from the community?
Good question.
Well, I think right now it's there's no system even to pay someone. Some people will think that because there's a lot of fraud, in my own family. One time there was this man that said, "Oh, I'll help fix your status. Give me $8,000," and it was all a scam. So a lot of that is happening. As far as I know, there's no way right now to legalize yourself. I'm undocumented myself for 15 years, and I've worked with a immigration lawyer that I know he will have helped me if I had an option. It depends the cases. Like right now, for example, the kids that are crossing the border, some kids might have an opportunity to get asylum because of the violence in Central America, which asylums are really hard to win. Or if people can't enter with a visa, they're like changes their situation. But for people who cross the border, like myself, there's no way right now. I don't know if that answers your question.
We have a question from Eric Hartman.
It occurs to me as I watch your slideshow that you have a very effective use of a medium there. Do you have a media strategy that you pursue through social media as well as others?
Well, I do our media, so if you're ever on our Facebook or read about us in the press, that was me, my shadow hand. So I will plug our website, sanctuaryphiladelphia.org, which has much more information about all of our different program areas, and you can follow us on Facebook at New Sanctuary Movement of Philadelphia. So we use social media a lot. It's always interesting to how to do. All of our posts are bilingual. I'm trying to make them trilingual in Indonesian. I don't know how good of a Google Translate job is doing for the Indonesian, so I'm probably really embarrassing us. I think social media is an important way to message, particularly to immigrants, that there's groups who are there to help them. Earned press, like official media channels, I think is also effective. We do a lot of media trainings. We would never have a member just talk to press without being really prepped. And it's also really important for us, as much as we can control it, to not just have people speaking as experts, not as like the resident immigrant who suffered some sort of exploitation, but really putting forward our policy demands and putting forward a vision to win. So we always talk about, when I'm prepping people to speak to press, for instance, what do you not want to talk about? You don't want to talk about border crossing. You don't want to talk about your kid who's you haven't seen in 18 years. And then I'll tell that member of the press we're not asking that question. So I try to have a really heavy hand on what is appropriate and try to train the media a little bit more to have more respectful interactions with our members. You can look in our press section on our website. We've had a lot of press, and I say that not to I think we try to do that as much as possible, not to be an ego-driven thing, and not just to be in the media, but rather to really push our issue and our vision.
We have a question from Felicia Congable.
Your organization seems is so highly developed. I wanted to know, one, when was it that this got started? How long has this process taken? And two, you had a flow chart which wasn't visible, but could you talk about it and tell how many people are on staff at your 501c3?
So we started in 2007, and I think we have grown so much, and we have learned a lot of lessons on the way. So when we started in 2007, it was a small group of concerned, mostly allies about deportations, as I said in the beginning. And it has taken us a long time to put a structure together and be very intentional about every step. So the chart that was there, if you can put it here so I remember.
Switching slides.
Sorry.
We're good.
So if you see the two circles at the bottom, it's having two ways. One is the allies and one is the immigrants. And at the beginning, we do recruitment with both of the communities, and then we talk about membership. There's the second circle, which is the second circle from the bottom. We talk about membership and explain what it is, what it means for the congregations. And then if you see the third circle comes together, so they're both come together, and it's education, relationship building in both ends, in the allies and in the immigrant communities. And then at the end, if you see the two circles keep staying together, which is organizing and accompaniment. So accompaniment we see as a tool to educate our allies of what it means to be an immigrant, what it means to be in this this path of deportation proceedings, and learning more about that. and organizing, which will involve leadership school. It will involve like people talking to media, people like gaining skills in the immigrant side to be able to speak up. So that's basically what the chart is it's saying, like how do we do both ways recruitment very intentionally and where we come together.
I think something else that's important about our organizing is that we're not working on a million campaigns. Our affected members, our immigrant members, decide what we want to work on, and then we work on that and kind of fight to win, as opposed to being engaged in having our hands in 10 different pots. So right now it's really our focus is on driver's licenses.
Yeah, and we believe like the decision was made because it's really easy to say, oh, we're working in 5 different campaigns, which with 4 staff is really impossible if you want to work deeply in a campaign. So we support other issues because there's a lot of other issues that also affect immigrant communities, like the salary theft, like domestic violence, like a lot of other issues that we are not working deeply, but when we can support somehow, we do support that. We whatever campaign we're working on, we work very deeply on that, and we are outside of the driver's license campaign. We are also entering to work in a campaign inside the campaign, like regarding to the driver's license in Philadelphia. When an immigrant gets stopped by the police and discovers that they don't have a driver's license, they take their car away. And it's like a big process to get the car back, go to court, paid a lot of money for not having a driver's license and to be able to get the car back. So we are thinking that that will be a way to gain some change in a shorter term, because we believe the driver's license it is going to take 3 years or more. It's a long-term campaign, so we're like trying to figure it out what are small victories that we can have while we still keep working for our driver's license.
We have about 8 minutes left, I believe. I have a question. You definitely have a very well-organized, well-developed operation, and it's grassroots driven. You're dealing with people from slightly different cultures, it sounds like. So is there a need for, or have you modified your approach according to cultural differences? For example, someone from Mexico or from Central America or your Muslim communities, how do you adapt your strategies?
I think in terms of recruiting and organizing, you have to really learn about the community. I think actually more than differences between country is differences between how faith communities operate. For instance, UUs and Catholics make decisions in really, really different ways. And you have to talk to really different people to get buy-in. So maybe you disagree with me. I think we have to listen carefully, whether it's based on country or whether it's based on faith background or class, which like different class issues can come up as well, and try to meet people where they're at and try to not have a mechanical organizing model where it's like you do A, B, C, and D, and then or you're not a member, but modify that according to the community.
Yeah, and I think when we come together, we're very, as a group, we are very aware that there are like different religions, that like they pray differently, they, have different rituals, and being really aware of not being too Christian or not being too Jewish or
that
any
never
other.
Happens. We're never too.
I know that never happens, but just like being aware of that and how are we coming together, how are we praying, how are we doing our reflections, being really aware of that. And in the community, I mostly organize right now the Indonesian community, which I have figured that we are very similar with the Latinos in like our values and like what we appreciate, what we like. Our stories are very similar, and it doesn't seem to be as much different. Like food is something that the Indonesians, for example, value a lot, and like how do we, come together and like bring those values in our spaces we are together.
Thank you. We're down to about our last 5 minutes. A question from Douglas Bauer.
A question, since this is about sanctuary. In Philadelphia, is there any actual legal backing for the idea of sanctuary in churches, or is this mostly just tradition?
So there's no like legal law that I think the word sanctuary gets used in lots of different ways. When we say sanctuary, we mean like physically someone living like Ilda and Ivan are doing right now, not leaving the church until they win. We have one. Philadelphia is what some people call a sanctuary city, in that we have stopped police-ICE collaboration. I think that actually the sanctuary city term is an anti-immigrant term that's come up around when the young woman was murdered in San Francisco last summer, and San Francisco had stopped most ICE holds. And they were like, because of the sanctuary city, she got killed, which doesn't seem accurate to me. So we say we have no police-ICE collaboration in Philadelphia. That does not mean there's no deportations in Philadelphia. ICE obviously is a rogue agency that does whatever it wants. We have ICE stopping people all of the time and deporting them. Also, just to say that there's a lot more work to be done. ICE continues to share its database. The police and jails continue to share its database with ICE, so someone can come home from jail or come home from police custody, and then ICE will show up at their door the next day because they have their address and have racially profiled them by looking through those policing databases to search by, that's how they've picked up Puerto Ricans, for instance, because it's like straight up racial profiling. So in terms of legality around someone living and taking physical sanctuary in a church, we got support from 11 city council members, including the person who is now the mayor. So that hasn't been an issue. We do have the anti-sanctuary city bill at the state level, and we've ended ICE holds. So maybe that answers your question around the ways that the word sanctuary is deployed differently, I think.
Do you want to take just a moment? We're down to about 1 minute, and make a closing statement?
I don't know. Sometimes, I will say, I feel really empowered by being able to see the work that other people are doing. And I always say this, citizens that might not have the need of doing this work for immigrants. So I'm really moved when I say this, when I'm in spaces like this. So I really want to thank you all for doing this work and putting your faith values in action. And it's really, really important for us, and it's really important to keep moving forward. And I really applaud that you are, on the way to fight for immigrant justice.
And thank you for hosting us.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your courageous and dedicated work. It's a great program. Let's give her a big hand.